think, act, and prosper. You are now tuned into the Money Level Show.
Hey Derek, how you doing today?
Hey, good to see you, Don. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, yes. My audience don't know me by Don, but they know me by Daryl. But for those
Oh, yeah.
for those that don't know, I am a music artist. I've done music for quite a bit. I go by the name of Daryl Dominic. I met Derek at a concert. I think Kid Sensation was there. Thizzle was
Yeah.
there. I think I was opening up. And so it was pretty cool. I think it was in Kirkland, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. That was one of the shows I put on. I put on a lot of different shows throughout the years for all kinds of artists. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was pre-pandemic, so that was like fall 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, then life has changed significantly since then.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
A lot of artists got put through the fire, right? We all did. Yeah.
of technology, I mean, you've seen it from Web 1.0, and now we're in Web 3.0.
Yeah.
And even during that time when the pandemic started, many people that were already ahead of the game in terms of had YouTube channels or audiences listening in or vlogs and things like that, like it just opened up a mass amount of people. People were shutting their homes,
Mm-hmm.
watching their phones, and people were able to get bigger followings who started channels earlier on and such. And
Mm-hmm.
so I want to jump into just a little bit of your backstory
Mm-hmm.
of how did you get started in technology, and at what drew you to that, and then um, at what part was technology, how far was it developed at that time?
Yeah, well, I go way back to the 80s when I was in high school, and my dad was a steel worker, honestly, and he just thought, hey, this is something me and my kid could do together. So he bought me an Atari computer, which were really cheap at the time. For like a few $100, you could get a computer that hooked up to your TV. So we would spend hours and hours and hours figuring it out together. Eventually, I minored in computer science and then got a degree kind of like in English. So I kind of combined the ideas of conveying ideas to lay people and also the technology side. And so that ended up landing me a job at Microsoft as an intern in the late 80s, uh, when Microsoft was only 2,000 people. And so I was there for a
Wow.
dozen years. I was there for a
Was
dozen
it
years.
private then, or was it public? Was it
It
was
it
it
was
private then?
public. It had been public for like a few years at that point. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, gotcha.
And
Go ahead.
yeah, so I was there for a dozen years and helped, launch a lot of products, and ended up being what they call the user experience manager for Visual Studio, which is the coding platform. So I designed a lot of Visual Studio. Um, and then anyway, so I was always involved with my church, playing drums, playing on worship bands, things like that. So I started helping people in the Seattle area record their own albums because I was kind of interested in home recording, which was new at the time. And yeah, so then eventually just started recording enough people, got into the scene, and then hired a publicist in Nashville. People were like, "Hey, you should hook up with Nashville," and so did that, and then landed a distribution deal with Sony that I had for 8 years, and then ended up financing records for Mr. Talkbox, who's now won 5 Grammys with Bruno Mars. Helped launch Alan Stone, who is now gone on to be a like celebrity coach on American Idol. Um, Jeremy Rosado financed a couple albums for him, and he's now signed to Capitol. Uh, I just lot of different artists I've helped along the way. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. So when you were in your early days at Microsoft, so there was a lot of just from me, studying like economics and markets and cycles and all of those
Hmm.
things.
Hmm.
Uh, to my understanding, there was a lot of people who were scared to invest, or
Yeah.
felt like technology wasn't going to develop to where it was, and
Hmm.
using a computer to go shopping like that, they were skeptical on that.
Yeah.
So, what
Hmm.
was that sentiment like then?
Well, I mean, I remember when I was going to work those original few months at Microsoft, and we felt like we were changing the world like every single day. Like it was really exciting to go to work. So that was cool. But yeah, I mean, I think the funny thing is with investing in technology, there's always the skeptics. And I think what tech has now shown, especially all these years later, is that it is just a wrecking ball to industries, and I think I've even been surprised. Like I feel like I've been pretty futuristic with regard to like where things are going and understanding where things are going. Um, but even I've been surprised, I think, recently to see how far digital everything has infected our lives, in every way. And it's only continuing. And actually, just to your point too, like another recent example was when Facebook went public. I remember people saying, "Oh yeah, social media is just a fad. It's gonna flame out. you know, is it worth $15 a share? Like,
Wow.
yeah." And like, look what happened.
Yeah, I'm mad. I'm mad. I was buying Meta back at was it late 2022? I didn't hold on to it. I took the little short term profits, hit $90. Ah,
Yeah, yeah, and it's probably had how many splits since then, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. So yeah,
yeah,
that's amazing. So there's obviously, with the development of new technologies, there are people that come along and they just don't know. Like, and so sometimes we're afraid of what we don't know or we're skeptical of it. And so unless you take the time to really do your due diligence, then you can begin to build some conviction around whatever asset or technology. And I've learned that a lot with Bitcoin. I mean, some of my followers on here, we're all gold bugs, but then you had this gold versus Bitcoin debate. But it was like, do your research, like you begin to understand the asset a lot more. So I definitely can relate to that sentiment at that time. So when you got to the dot com, I mean, obviously, if you Microsoft in the late '80s, I mean, there was like three market crashes, three recessions during that
yes,
time. And
yes,
uh, you had Black Monday, you had the
yes,
92, and then you had the dot com. So
yes.
how did you weather those storms? Like what was helping you keep conviction around technology?
Yeah.
Time out. Quick break in the action. This message is brought to you by the Rule Symposium. This annual symposium is hosted by the legendary investor Rick Rule himself. It will take place from July 7th through 11th in Boca Raton, Florida. Mr. Rule invites some of the most brilliant minds in macroeconomics and natural resource investing. This year, featured speakers include Danielle DiMartino Booth, Nomi Prinz, Jim Rickards, Grant Williams, Lobo Tigre, and more. Rick even organizes the Living Legends panel where he invites individuals who have built billion-dollar businesses from scratch. Attendees will be introduced to a myriad of companies active in the natural resources space, with the companies invited being the ones that Rick Rule invests in himself. The symposium is held at the Boca Raton, which is an amazing resort with exceptional amenities. I attended in 2023 and thoroughly enjoyed my time there. I went on an amazing cruise with Rick and other investors and CEOs of companies, and even had the opportunity to test drive an Aston Martin for the first time. So don't miss out on this opportunity to have fun and receive high quality education to help secure your financial future. Click the link below to sign up, and I promise you won't regret it. But if you do, Rick offers an amazing money back guarantee. So what are you waiting for? Click the link below to sign up today. Now, without further ado, let's get back to the content.
Yeah, I didn't really feel it until the dot com crash, the dot com, bubble that burst in like late, 99, 2000, somewhere in there, early 2000s. And yeah, I mean, because I remember owning a technology index fund and a mutual fund that lost 75% of its value. And
Wow.
I was just throwing up my hands like, oh man, I don't know about this investing thing, And and then we also had the other thing that was a killer is we had what was known as the lost decade, where like even Microsoft stock, I think 2005 to around, 2012 to 2015, somewhere in there, like went nowhere for a whole decade. Like it, went up, down, whatever. And then, but if you look across a decade, it was basically zero sum. But what was crazy, I think, with all the technology companies in those middle 2000s, it was like they were silently changing the world and nobody knew it. And then all of a sudden, it just, the impact of all of that through social media and mobile apps and AI and like all this stuff started getting unleashed. And it was like, where did this all come from?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and so it really, I mean, from an economics perspective, it unlocked a whole new wave of like productivity that some are saying is the engine of our GDP growth right now. Like um and so even though we have all this inflation and all this kind of stuff like that, like tech is really the only thing that's saving the economy because we're having such leaps and bounds in productivity. Um, so yeah, so it definitely was rough.
Mhm. Yeah,
um, it
yeah.
definitely was
Tech's
rough.
definitely. I was just saying, tech definitely is making a lot of things cheaper. As
Yes.
time passes on, like I mean, the flat screen TVs used to be like, you
Yeah.
had to pay $1,000 for those, and then those are
Yeah.
even becoming a lot cheaper now because of just how advanced technology has become and everything.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And even like I was just telling my wife this, like, the Gen Z generation in particular, like they don't know how good they have it with all these like advanced like cameras and webcams and lighting and all these live streaming.
Yeah.
Like, I started live streaming like back in like 2010, and I have to pay like $2,500 for a live streaming box.
Wow.
you know
Wow.
and where now you just flip a switch, right? Like, and it's on.
Mhm.
And so yes, and those are just the small ways, right, that technology makes a difference and people don't really realize, like, oh yeah, 15, 14 years ago, live streaming, like nobody was doing it and there was like it was hard to do, and it was expensive. um and yeah, so I think now, like you mentioned Bitcoin, what's funny is I kind of missed the Bitcoin boat. And I didn't really realize how important of a transformation that it, was and is. And it's been great to see because I love like Coinbase. Coinbase has a hashtag they use in their social media. They go hashtag update the system. And really, Bitcoin or just crypto as a whole is really about the efficiency of money and make money moving faster. And, like you and I met through the music business, and like that's the whole game, like for the music business now, where, if an artist today has to upload an album, right, to TuneCore or CD Baby or, whatever, then it goes in all the digital stores and people stream it. Then they have to wait like 4 months to get their money, you know. Whereas if we had streaming services that were based on crypto and smart contracts, you could upload your song today, people could start streaming it today, and then as soon as they stream it, you get paid the instant they stream it. And so every day you would be getting paid. Now, it would be micropayments, right? But who cares? Like platforms like Solana, and Coinbase launched Base. These are what they call layer two technologies, made for high speed transactions. Um, and so like this stuff exists today. We could be building those solutions today, and it's just exciting to see where people are gonna go from here. So yeah.
Yeah, so you mentioned quite a few good points. You mentioned like from 2005 to 2012, it was like a lost decade for technology. I mean, just
Yeah.
even a reputation after coming out of the dot-com bubble. Then you had the
Yeah.
housing bubble and
Yeah,
just
that's right.
the global financial crisis and
Yep.
everything. So, and I think about these cycles even with cryptocurrency and Bitcoin in between the halving cycles, like you have this huge run up, blow off top, and then
Hmm.
you have just bearish sentiment for a number of years, usually around
Yes.
2 to 4 years. And
Yes.
during that time, like people are like developing more and more technology very, very fast.
Yeah.
I mean, one particular technology I invest in is the decentralized cloud storage. And
Okay, yeah. Hmm.
so, which that's like something that's very practical because some people may look at like a Shiba Inu or a Dogecoin and like, oh, it's just all speculation. But
Yeah.
there's actually some companies that are doing some things, with the decentralization of cloud storage. I mean, most cloud storage, I mean, you have Microsoft, iCloud, Google, you
Amazon. Yeah.
big giants,
Yeah.
that are like absorbing that. And so when it
Hmm.
comes to like privacy and things of that nature, you get these concerns. And so decentralized cloud storage could help with that. And so
Yeah.
so it's very interesting, like just to be able to see like the technologies that are actually provide some utility and value.
Yeah, and I think and I've kind of been telling people recently too, what's amazing is like when you look over the last 20 or 30 years, we've had these waves of very disruptive technologies from, just the internet to, e-commerce like, Amazon arriving, and then we had, Wi-Fi, and then we had mobile, and then we had social, and all these things combining together, just creating wave after wave of value and wealth, and what's crazy is right now we have like multiple streams of that happening at the same time. So we have like the crypto stream, we've got the AI stream now happening. And everybody agrees like the AI thing is just completely disruptive, and we like it's so powerful we don't even understand how
Yes.
powerful economically it's going to be. So, if you're going to play one theme, like that's definitely one to play. um, then we have like medical technology. Like I've been aware of like different med tech companies that are emerging. And that's such a huge thing too, because healthcare costs so much money.
Mhm.
Um, and even like, we just had the Consumer Electronics Show, and I was just watching these YouTube videos about exoskeletons, which are things you strap on your body, to like be a mech, like from a game or something. But like, but the crazy thing is, like, when you think practically about how a simple exoskeleton could strap on like an elderly person to help them walk, or somebody who was in an accident, or, whatever. And like this stuff changes people's lives, and it's affordable now.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's sensors, and with AI, and like the cost and components coming way down, like it's just really, the med tech space is just going to be extremely disruptive too. And there's even more streams I'm not even thinking of right now.
There's so many.
Um,
There's so many.
yeah, exactly.
I,
Yeah.
I like I mean another place I've been investing is in decentralized social media.
Okay.
And,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
that's been like a big one. I mean, especially, coming out of the pandemic, people's accounts were getting shut down and like people like were being censored or
Yes.
all those things.
Right.
So decentralized social media
Yes.
is a huge one where you could take your profile to different platforms and so it's so much good stuff coming out of this. I'm super excited.
Yeah.
I wanted to give my audience just more of an understanding if you could break down for us the difference and the evolution between Web 1, 2, and 3.0.
Yeah, so Web 1 was just the basic idea of, right, being able to really kind of travel the globe, um, without leaving your chair. I mean, that's the way I like to think about it. I remember seeing my first website, I think in 1991 it was. And I remember it was like, the tour Office of Tourism for like Sweden had a web page up, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm looking at a page from Sweden, and like back then, like that was just so revolutionary. Like in, a tenth of a second or half a second, you could
We're
view
past
that.
the Morse code at that point, right?
Right. I mean, because we'd all been living in the corded telephone age, right? Like you're stuck to a wall, you
Mhm.
know. Um, and then Web 2 came along, and Web 2 was more about like e-commerce and services, what we call web services, where, oh, you need to, log into your website or whatever. Well, as a developer, I don't have to think about writing login code. I can just use Facebook's login to give me that service, or Google's login to give me that service. And then people can log into my website and I don't have to, worry about it. There's like reusable components of the web. Um, and so, but the downside of that is that it created, what we call a centralized web, where, oh, well, now Facebook and Google own the authentication service for all the websites that you log into, right? um, or in the case of, like you said, social media, you're handing over all your data to one entity. And so if you want to move, like, you can't take that data with you, so uh, when the service is free, you're the product, right? As we like to say.
Yeah, I heard that saying a few times. Yeah.
Yeah. So then that leads us to Web3, which the idea is everything is decentralized. So that means that whatever you do on the web, or things that you put out there, it could be a comment on somebody's YouTube page, or it could be, like I said, music that you upload or whatever. That's yours. That's yours to take with you, and you monetize it, not somebody else. Like, even with musicians, with, say, Spotify, it's like you upload your music, Spotify monetizes it. They take a 30% cut, right? And then they hand you back. And actually, there's a lot of other funny business with how you get paid out. But then eventually they give you some amount of money that they think you should get, right? And now in Web3, what it is like you say, hey, no, I'll allow you to use my music, and here's what you need to pay for it.
Hmm.
And if
So it
people
gives
don't want
more
it,
power.
huh?
That gives more power back into the hands of the people.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. So finally we can get pricing power back in the hands of the artists. Like, I like to look at, like, here's kind of an extreme example. Like, what if Led Zeppelin, like one of the most iconic songs of all time is Stairway to Heaven, right? What if Led Zeppelin came out and said, okay, we're going to take Stairway to Heaven down off of all streaming services. It's just going to be gone, right? And we're gonna sell 1,000 copies to 1,000 Led Zeppelin fans. So imagine how much that song would go for, right? That you would
Hmm.
be the authorized owner of Stairway to Heaven, and then as a collector of that song, you would then have, Led Zeppelin would give you the right to be able to stream it to other people. So I could pay Led Zeppelin, and then I could allow it to be streamed on streaming services, Spotify, whatever. So when people stream my copy, I get paid, and then also Led Zeppelin gets paid a streaming royalty as well. But there's only 1,000 people who have that original copy, that of those 1,000 copies, and that's it. So it's no different than going to the Louvre in Paris and looking at the Mona Lisa. There's only one copy, and you have to go to the Louvre to see it. Right?
Yeah. Wow.
So
Yeah, that's
imagine that applying to everything from now on. That's kind of what Web3 is.
yeah, that's I mean that's would just give so much more people opportunity, access and everything. I was when you were mentioning that, I was thinking about how right now we have a lot of big institutions getting into the crypto space, and we had the launch of a Bitcoin ETF. I mean,
Hmm.
you had some huge players, Fidelity,
Hmm.
BlackRock, many others. And so, what do you see this meaning and looking like for the Web 3.0 development? Are you seeing like this is going to be massive amounts of capital coming into to help develop this even more?
Yeah, I think there's a good and a bad here. The good is, yes, it will absolutely open the floodgates to new investors, like being able to own cryptocurrency without actually having to have a wallet, like a crypto wallet, you know, that you have to worry about maintaining it. Where is it stored? Um, so yeah, so that's going to be huge. I think the downside in all of it, and what we've been seeing over the last few years, is the Federal Reserve and the government as a whole is trying to set up a handful of banks, like 5 banks, mega banks, that they can
Hmm.
control and regulate, and that's it, you know? And so it kind of goes against the whole idea of Bitcoin and decentralization. Um, and so when you look at who they're authorizing to launch these Bitcoin ETFs, it's basically these big mega, banks that are offering the Bitcoin ETFs, and it comes down to just regulation.
Yeah.
So I think that's the downside of it, because I think that, like, especially in the early days of Bitcoin, and I don't know what the mix is now, but like in the early, like for the past really, like, I don't know, 8 years or something, or whatever, since Bitcoin launched, a large portion of Bitcoin was owned by Chinese people, because they're like, we don't trust our government, we don't trust the yuan, and its value, and we see Bitcoin as like the people's coin, for real.
Yeah.
And
I mean, they were mining a lot. They were mining a lot when China had cracked down on them a couple years ago.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So I kind of see the same thing happening with, say, the US dollar, where like the our government has been really irresponsible, like with our spending, and so we've basically just debased and abused our currency, where it's just basically the US dollar is like a meme coin. I look at it as no different than
Yeah.
than Dogecoin or whatever, right? you know
Yeah.
and
True.
so the Bitcoin and Ethereum in particular, like, uh they and many people and some very smart economists have been talking about this, is like cryptocurrency is kind of like your hedge against inflation and bad governments doing stupid things with your money. um so in that sense, like, however you own Bitcoin, whether it's through a Bitcoin ETF or through holding it in a wallet, it definitely is a wise investment as a portion of your overall assets. Some people get crazy and want to go all in, right, in crypto, but you're in for a wild ride
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you
yeah,
do
you
that.
are. It's a lot of volatility for sure.
Yeah.
So, and I mentioned that because I was thinking about, venture capital, and there seems to be, with the development of Web3. I mean, now we have the music, and I was telling you about a coin offline that
Mhm.
focuses on artists being able to sell portions of their song and give royalties, or people, like, I can buy royalties to someone else's song
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
such. And just how you mentioned before, like if Stairway to Heaven was distributed to 1,000 people, and they own a part of that royalty.
Yeah.
um and that's just very, like, transformational. So, like, how do you see, because it seems like we're early. I mean, I
Yes.
went super early, but, like, because I try to bring this up to some of my friends that are artists,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like going over their head, and so
Yeah.
I'm wondering, what's your take on, like, have you been able to reach artists with this new technology
Yeah.
that's coming out?
Man,
Such.
this is such a great question. And I'm kind of chuckling to myself when you said we're early, because I love that phrase. I love using that
Hmm.
phrase, because I think sometimes we don't know how early we are. Because I
Yeah,
think you and I
exactly.
see how transformational this kind of stuff is, like with crypto, Web3. Um, but a lot of people just don't get it, and the fans aren't there. Like, that's, I think, the biggest problem with artists right now, is they go, well, Derek, I get what you're saying, but like, my fans don't even own crypto, so like, there's no point in me selling a download track on sound.xyz or something. um and yeah, and I understand that, but at the same time, I feel like you have to start doing experiments now. Like, if you're an artist, whether you're a visual artist or a music artist, like, you have to start experimenting in the space now. Because when we look at like again, rewind the clock to like 1995 when Windows 95 shipped, and the internet was new. And the big thing about Windows 95 is that it shipped a bunch of software components that allowed you to get on the internet and made the internet popular. So web pages, Internet Explorer, all this stuff. And there was a lot of like networking guts and stuff that came in Windows 95. And so everybody knew back then, like, okay, the web is going to change everything. But like, it didn't really change everything until like 20 years later. Like till you were buying 90% of the stuff that you need for your house on Amazon. Like I remember like even during the pandemic, everybody's like, how did Amazon get so powerful? Well, it's like, well, we voted for them with every click and purchase we've been making for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
you know um, and that's how it happens, and that's kind of the timeline of it. So it's like you can see the early seeds and you can see the foundation being built, and that's what we're seeing, I think, with Web3 today. It's going to take time for it to be changing us in little ways, but I think for artists, start now. Like you have, like, even if it's in small ways, start now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, because you mentioned, I mean, Amazon, I mean, they, obviously the 2 day shipping, and then I'm looking at writing a book, a children's book on finance and money.
Mm,
Uh, and I'm looking at Amazon and the pros and cons of distributing there and everything. And so
mhm.
I'm kind of just wondering like how would this look when uh Web3 for like authors of books and such. I mean, obviously ebooks is, something
Mhm.
that's exists online. And yeah, so I'm kind of wondering what that would look like. Because I mean, we have the artwork, right? You have the digital
Yeah.
with NFTs. Now,
Mhm.
now we're in the music. Now you have the gaming. Uh,
Yes.
the gaming has been huge. I think I
Mhm.
heard Starbucks was staking some land on Decentraland or something,
Oh,
something
okay.
like
Yeah.
that.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I'm kind of
Yeah.
wondering, like, okay, I'm wondering like how this is gonna next
Yeah.
like impact the writers of books as well.
Right. Yeah. Well, I tend to think it's kind of the same equation, whether it's books, movies, music, even to some degree software. Like, look at what the movie industry has been doing over the last, I don't know, 10 or so years, with the rise of Netflix. It's like they have what we call gating strategy, right? It's like put it in movie theaters for people to, get the premium experience. Then you release it on, I guess what they call video on demand, so pay to, pay to rent it. Uh, then it might move to streaming, and it might go a, across different platforms for a period of time, right?
Mhm.
And then it eventually goes to whatever the YouTube or something, right, for free. So like or you look at like I was remember thinking recently over the holidays that like I had never seen the movie Die Hard end to end, and I was and I'd seen snippets of it over the years, but I've never seen the whole movie. And I was like, I want to watch Die Hard. Where can I see Die Hard? You cannot like stream Die Hard anywhere. You have to this day you have to buy that title. You know, and
Wow.
that's pretty crazy to think for a movie that came out in the what, 80s or early 90s or something,
Yeah, very
you know.
popular movie too.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And the studio knows it, so they're like, no, we're going to monetize the heck out of it. We're not putting it on streaming like ever. So yeah, so I think that's what you just have to be smart as an artist, and making those trade-offs between, okay, am I going to go for exposure and get like almost nothing, or am I going to more appeal to some smaller demographic, like sell it to 50 people and sell it for 50 bucks, when I can get $2,500 out of the deal, versus putting it on streaming and it's up there for 2 years and I get $100. Like,
Mhm.
you have to do that math, I think, as an artist to figure out what you want.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And do you see any trends with like obviously we've seen like lately, this was not lately, I mean it's been a number of years, but the increase in like cyber attacks, malware, ransomware, all
Yeah.
things. And and it seems like a big risk. I mean, there's a movie that recently came out, Leave the World Behind, I think, or
Oh
something.
yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
That's been like a huge theme in terms of like
Yeah.
the risks for certain technologies. I mean, we've seen like, crypto wallets get hacked and but now
Yeah.
ways to track it back and such. And so
Yeah.
do you see this like still being a because almost like the Wild Wild West. That's what I heard.
Yeah.
That's a way that I've heard it explained. And obviously it's come a long way since then. But do you see like any trends where this is becoming like more safer? I mean, you mentioned regulation earlier.
Yeah. Hmm.
What are you seeing there?
Yeah, this is a great question. I love talking about this. Because I mean, early technologies always have, problems. But at the same time, we all use one of the worst forms of malware every single day. It's called email. Email has been the source of financial scams, to the tune of trillions of dollars for decades, and barely anybody's done anything about it. you know,
Wow.
like nobody criticizes email for like proliferating fraud, and really when you think about it, it's the same thing, versus crypto or whatever. I do think the thing that has changed with email is there are more safeguards in place. Like when you click on a link, Outlook might say, hey, do you really want to visit this site, or whatever. There are more protections now. So I think that's the thing, is that as a technology matures, there's like more guardrails that get put on over time. And I think the challenge for, say, Web3 technologies is the Web3, there's a lot of money to be made by either one or many Web3 companies to be the company that starts to bring those guardrails, right? So yeah, in fact, I even posted this about LinkedIn. I took a screenshot. I was sending some money from, I think it was just my Coinbase wallet to my Coinbase, main account. Um, and I think it was like some Solana or something like that. And so you have to, when you send money from, say, a wallet to even another wallet, um, you have to choose not only the right cryptocurrency address to receive the money, but you also have to choose, now they have, you choose different networks, they call it. And so like as a user, I now have to like know, like, from all these selections, like what cryptocurrency am I sending, which one am I receiving, and on what network. And I get a warning from Coinbase in the app that says, warning, if you do not do this correctly, you may send your money into space. And I'm like, that can't even be possible. Like there needs to be, safeguards in place where that's just not even an error that you could possibly make.
Yeah, yeah.
Make, you know what I mean? And that doesn't exist in the current financial system. And so, well, it kind of does. I mean, because you can still, like, if you wire money, you could wire it to somebody else, and that's irreversible. So there are some, I guess, analogous things there, but it's hard to do,
Mm.
right?
Yeah,
Especially when you're sending money across your own accounts.
yeah,
Um,
so I'm seeing like now I've been seeing lately with Ledger. Ledger offers like a
mhm.
service where if you lose your passphrase,
Mhm.
where you pay like almost like this insurance to where they can get it back for you. And
Oh,
so
okay.
that's been like a new development because obviously you get these random words in your passphrase and you're like, okay, where do I store this at?
Mhm.
So one
Mhm.
time I took a screenshot of it. They warned me a screenshot is not safe.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just like, I see some things, developing there, and I'm interested to see how it continues to develop.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think we definitely have a long way to come, but I do think sometimes we also forget the risks that we have in our everyday lives already with even dumb stuff like email.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. So so what are you up to now? So
Yeah.
you're still working on music, and what else are you up to?
Yeah, so right now I'm the director of design for experience design at a technology consulting firm here in Bellevue, Washington. Um, and so for technology clients, I do things through that entity. But if I'm working with artists, I have my management company that I run to this day, and it's called Rain on Me Productions. So you can go to rainonmeproductions.com. And so yeah, so I've been, helping artists for literally 20 years, either helping them finance records or do marketing plans or just helping them understand the future. And then I've promoted a lot of shows. I've helped develop streaming platforms. So yeah, if you want to reach me there, you can just go to my website and rainonmeproductions.com. That's kind of the best way to reach me. Or you can find me on all social platforms. I'm just at Derek, Derek, Hoiem, Hoiem, all one word. And that's the best way to find me. Pretty available.
All right, cool. I'll be sure to link those in the description below, and definitely got to have you come back on as we get into the Bitcoin halving and as we get later in the year or whatnot.
Yeah, sounds great. All right.
All right, thanks, Derek.
Thanks so much, Daryl.